Welcome to this edition of Strange Scriptures, hosted by Kevin Gallagher. Strange Scriptures is exactly that. It's those scriptures in God's Word that seem to offer no end of baffling to the Western mind. The reason for this is very simple. The Bible, many people have forgotten, is an Eastern book, written and inspired by God to men and women who were Eastern in their origin. Their customs, ways of speaking, their manners, all Eastern. And for the most part, these people lived a long time ago, and the customs and the manners and the culture cannot be expected to be anything near similar to what we experience in our today's Western world. And thus comes much of the frustration and understanding some of these scriptures and being able to rightly divide God's Word. We have one such occurrence that we will see in two different places. The first place is going to be in the book of Romans 12:20. It talks about heaping coals of fire upon one's head. It says, heaping coals of fire on the head, therefore, if your enemy hungers, feed him. If he thirsts, give him drink. For in so doing, you will reap coals of fire upon his head. We read that in Romans, and in the book of Proverbs 25, we go to verse 21, and we read a very similar entry. If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. And if he is thirsty, give him water to drink. For you will heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord, or Yahweh, will reward you. Well, I thought in God's Word it said not to do evil or repay evil with evil. So what can this be talking about? Because that looks like a glaring contradiction. But actually it isn't. When you understand the idioms, and idioms, folks, are some of the most difficult things to translate from one culture or language into another. A very easy example that I gave in the last edition was when you have the expression, let's go shoot the bull later. You're not talking about shooting a literal animal, you're talking about sitting down and talking. So can you imagine what people would think 1,000, 2,000 years from now if they read something like that, and people thinking, well, why would they be going out shooting, innocent animals? Why would they do that? That's where the confusion comes in. Now, with this idiom, it's a great idiom. It has a lot of great teaching for us. And in the days and times of the Bible, people knew exactly what was being spoken of. You see, the way in which fires and coals were done back then, there would be a woman who was in charge of the flint, and then she would have a young boy. Once she had all the coals made, she would have a young boy carry these from one household to another. And this woman would load the fire up in a clay bucket, put it on the boy's head, and you still see this custom today with people carrying things on the top of their head. And he would go from house to house, and sometimes these mornings were quite cold. So that hot coals that he had on top of his head would warm the whole boy up and keep him warm in the cold. And so it was a pleasant task for the boy. And he would go about making his rounds, and he would knock on each door and get the coals out so people could keep their fires going or start their fires back up. And so he would bless them with being able to offer them the hot coals to start their fires. And he could do that for them. So by doing good to your neighbor, by giving them the hot coals so that they could start their fires, they're warming their fires and are able to experience that warmth. That's what people in that day and time knew by the idiom that we know by just saying something as simple as shooting the bull would mean today. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this segment, this edition of Strange Scriptures. I'm Kevin Gallagher.